I absolutely love it and I hate it. That's how I would describe my experience with the Thrustmaster Eswap S. Hey everyone, it's the Photo Techie. I hope you're all doing well. So today I'm sharing my experience of the Thrustmaster Eswap S, and it took me some time to get this review done because I've had a lot of issues with it. I'll explain that a bit later. But let's start with the price. It costs $109.99 here in UK. Comes with a code for 1 month of Game Pass Ultimate. I haven't redeemed that. And we get a very premium braided USB-A to USB-C cable and the controller itself. In terms of ergonomics and the feel, built very nicely, thick plastics, weighs 263 grams on my scale. It's very different than the standard controller, much wider at the top, and the grips gets longer, but they get very slimmer, especially the part that your fingers are wrapping around, very, very slim towards the edges. Is something I noticed straight away, especially my left hand, my my ring finger and the little finger. It was just like, it felt like I was like gripping it too hard. They started aching for the first, like I would say, 5 hours of gameplay. But I got used to it. Literally after a day, I actually started liking the controller, the way I was gripping it. But yeah, it's a good feel, especially the texture they've used. The plastic is thicker, so it doesn't feel cheap, and it feels very nice to hold. The triggers are a little bit different as well. I'll explain more in the trigger sections, but they just like, they have a sharp edge, a slope and a slope. There is no like a sort of like a straight plane or something here. But once you get used to it, very, very comfortable to hold. And like I said, no creaks or anything, built very solidly as well. So I wanted to show you guys the Thrustmaster X software features, but unfortunately, all the issues I've had with the controller are because of this software. For instance, I can change the profile on the controller right now, so I can swap through the profiles. If I run the software, which is the Thrustmaster X software, once it detects the controller, you have a lot of options there, but now I can't change. Even if I switch off the software and I come out of it, the software is gone, I still can't switch between the profiles. This happens not only on the PC, it happens on Xbox as well. Same issue, I'd have to literally disconnect and reconnect the controller for it to take effect again, the controls on the controller itself. So that was one issue that I had. The other thing, that the reason I stopped using the software, was it gives you a lot of options. So we have so many options for mapping. We can make a preset, you can do a lot of things. So you have 2 profiles, and then sticks have this amazing option of like being able to change your, the response. So the smaller response, you can increase it or you can decrease it. Unfortunately, the moment you do anything here, even let's say you take that center dead zone down to 0 and the outer dead zone down to 0 or whatever, the moment you do the changes here, the aiming just went completely off. And that was the problem. I was thinking there was something wrong with the controller. And then it hit me that, okay, maybe I just, make sure that everything is just back to standard, like to normal. Why is this, like aiming felt so inconsistent? Even though I changed the settings and I brought them back to their original ones in the Thrustmaster X, still was not feeling right. Until what I did was, I literally basically resetted the profiles. So how you do that is, you will press and hold the map and the profile buttons together, and both LEDs will start blinking after, I believe it's 10 seconds. Once you do that, that profile that you are in will be, there you go. So now the both LEDs are flashing. Now the profile's been reset. And that's what I did. I basically reset the profile, both of them, and then I forgot about the Thrustmaster X software, didn't use that at all, and I just used the controls on the controller itself. So to map, when you go into the default, your back buttons are doing different things, so you have to remap them. And just to show you, so now it must have, so my right one usually is supposed to be jump that I remap, but it's doing the B press at the moment, and left one is doing jump. But if I want to change them, I literally just press the map button, the LED flashes, and I press the back and the face button together, the controller vibrates. That means now my left back button is doing B. Because the right is mapped to that one, I will just do that again, press the map button, press the right and the A together, the back button and the A together, and now my back button is doing A. So this is what I did, guys. If you have issues or anything like that, try this. Just reset everything on the controller. Don't use the Thrustmaster X. Now, the software does show that there is an update available for my controller, but it doesn't do the update. So mine is at 53.0, the firmware version. And the moment I pressed the update firmware, I tried it on the PC, I've tried it on 2 different computers, I've tried it on, I only have one Xbox Series X, I've tried it on my Xbox, and none of the computers or the console can update this controller. So unfortunately, I don't want to show you all the details of the software because for me, they broke my controller and I will be just reviewing it. So those were the issues basically. So I'm just reviewing it as the controller itself. Another issue my controller has is audio that's coming out really bugged. I can't go to full volume. It starts cutting out, like all the louder, it's like there is a cutoff point. It just literally cuts the volume, anything above there. So your gunfire will just like all the volume goes away. But if you bring it down, then you can have, some gaming experience. But yeah, for me, the audio and the software experience was very bad. And that's why it took me such a long time to try and figure this out. So one unique thing about this controller is out of the box, we have a 250 Hertz polling rate. So under like 4 milliseconds. And so I guess that's just a standard. Like Xbox supports up to 250 Hertz anyway. But you can actually overclock this one to 500 Hertz easily. And I'll just quickly show you that. And this actually takes the overclock up to 500 and will bring down the response time as well. So it's not like it takes the overclock, but the response time stays at 2 milliseconds. It actually brings the response time down as well. And so let me just reconnect this. And if I do the test now, you will see that this is showing under 2 milliseconds and going up to, don't worry about that because of the outlier. I must be the top one. This is something, if your controller has no very small dead zone, the initial movement you do in the X input will show you a big outlier. But if you increase the dead zone, that goes away. I've done this test many times with the game serve and the, the Gambit. If you are, if you increase the dead zone or just keep, or what you can do the other way, if you want to just see the response or something like that, keep rotating the stick whilst you basically enter that. And you will see what I mean, the outlier will go. So if I keep rotating the stick and I enter that, and that outlier will go, and now we're getting 609 Hertz polling rate. So sometimes don't worry about the polling rate, just look at the, the average and stuff. And there we go, so like 500 Hertz easy for this controller. But yeah, one unique feature this one has, so it joins the club with the Victrix Gambit and the PDP Rematch. Those are the only other controllers I have seen that can be overclocked to 500 Hertz, Xbox controllers that can be overclocked to 500 Hertz. All right, let's talk about the face buttons. So the ABXY buttons are micro switches. They are on a straight plane. So usually these curve, but these are straight and they're a bit smaller than the standard controller. Pressing them with your thumb is actually a very good feel. They are, because they have sharp edges and stuff, they do feel a little bit different, especially if you thinking that you want to, do claw grip with this one. These buttons, I did find them to be a bit difficult to press in the claw grip, but that's due to the design of the trigger as well. I'll explain that a little bit in the trigger section. But it's good buttons, but if you are thinking of, that you're going to do the claw, might not be the best ones. The D-pad, on the other hand, again, micro switches, but very loose. So I have a lot of play on my D-pad. It moves a lot. But worked absolutely perfectly for me. I don't play any fighting games. It's only Call of Duty and Battlefield, and every time I was using it. So I have this habit of, when I'm running and I need to either do the select fire or whatever, I use actually my right thumb to press instead of doing that. So it's just like, you can keep running or whatever. But it never had false actuations, always worked perfectly. So very decent. I do hope that this wobbliness, doesn't increase or whatever. Maybe it's just my unit. Because I was, reading other reviews, nobody mentioned that, but I do feel that. So face buttons, the ABXY D-pad, very, very good. The other problem I have is these, the map button and the profile switch buttons, they are in the standard Xbox sort of place. So instead of pressing the menu and the view button, you end up pressing these. So this one switches the profile, this one goes into the mapping mode. Very strange how they've designed this, but yeah, that's something that I noticed. It's like you have to mentally tell yourself, oh, those are there. I think these are just like normal tack switches in there, or even like a membrane with a metal dome, conductive dome underneath it, the film. So I think, yeah, that's what they're using. But yeah, face buttons, everything was very, very good actually. Okay, let's talk about the triggers first. This controller, I have to say, is a very strange feeling trigger. So usually what happens in a controller, the trigger, they have a pivot that's basically right at the beginning, so the whole thing goes down. What they've done is the pivot is sort of like just here. So when you press it down, this part actually moves up. So instead of like going all the way down, it does this. So this part goes up and this goes down. One benefit of this design is the travel feels shorter. It's, because it only has one stage trigger stop and it cuts about 50% of the trigger pull. And it honestly feels much shorter travel. My problem with this is how they've designed the actual trigger. It's so sharp, the edge, and especially this corner is very, very sharp. And this design sort of forces you to be right at the tips. So when I'm using this, I can't press nicely here because, this part actually moves up. So I can't press it from this part. I have to be out either here. And then the way the controller is designed, the grips, I end up being right at the corners. And I do use weapons with the single fire a lot. And this literally digs in so much, it hurts. You can probably see my, how much it's sort of like digs into my fingers. But I guess it's a me problem because nobody else, again, have mentioned this. But it's so strange. I've never ever experienced this design. If they had used a bit more rounded edges and not that sharp corner there, and this plane was not a slope and a slope, if this was like a bit more flatter plane like other controllers have, this could have been an amazing trigger design, to be honest. Because so these are definitely Hall effect triggers. Why I say these are Hall effect, because you can, when you enable trigger stops, the whole linear pull gets mapped to the shorter settings. So if you don't have a trigger stop engaged, you have 0 to 100 in the longer sort of thing. The moment you engage them, you don't need to go to the software to do that. It automatically adjusts. The 0 to 100 is a linear pull. It's not like insta. So you're getting 0 to 100 in the 50% of the travel. But the design, the way they've used it, even the 50% cut feels really good. So positive and negatives. But like I said, I think it's a me problem. Nobody else seems to have had issues with those. Bumpers, oh, okay, so they do feel tactile, but my biggest problem is my right bumper is very different to the left bumper. And I think I might have an issue with this bumper going forward, because there's so much like dead press, and then it presses, and then even after you press it, there's so much travel after that. Left one feels nice and tactile, but right one is like, I don't know if it's not sitting properly, and all this, this slop, this sort of like a dead press kind of thing, it's not very nice feeling, but it's decent. It's worked perfectly. So usually when I'm gaming, I'm sort of like pressing like this anyway. Sometimes I'll quickly come up, and instead of doing the tip, I'll like do from the dip joint of the finger. That's where I use this. So strange, especially when you do field upgrades in Call of Duty. You're like, why is the right one feeling so different to the left one? But they work perfectly. They work 100% of the time. I've never had an issue where it didn't register, or it's doing a double register or whatever. No issues like that. It works. It's just this physical sort of the top has me worried a little bit that it might break. So we have two back buttons. They are out of the way. If you want to, you can grip the controller without basically actuating them. But the good thing is they are like in a really good place for being in the center. They're not too far away. I am somebody who actually likes to keep the fingers on the back buttons. I don't like moving and using and then going back. I don't do that. The reason I use back button controllers is because I want them, available to me. So the way the controllers are designed, in especially Xbox layout, the way the thumb is sitting a bit higher up, especially with these back buttons, I end up putting my middle finger a little bit down. So it's like the side of the finger I'm using on the left side. And the way I'm gripping the right aim side, I'm using the tip side. And the good thing for me is I actually use crouch on the left and jump on the right. That's just how I've done, since the beginning. So it works out well for me, because I do need that feeling on the tip to do time jumps. And I can't do that from the inside. It's just like, for me mentally, it's just like I can't do that, like, a very time press. So it works really well. Using the crouch on the left-hand side, absolutely worked perfectly for me. And even doing time jumps, I was even able to do quick pressing and then jump, like single button presses of the right trigger and then jump at the same time. Something that I find a little bit difficult with other controllers, but this one was amazing. And then getting through like time jump spots and stuff, absolutely perfect. So I do think The back buttons are nicely placed. My only concern is they've given us micro switches on the face buttons and the D-pad, but the back buttons are normal tack switches. Now, in my search online, the tack switches are like the maximum, rated life cycle of normal tack switches, like 2 million. Some are even only 500,000 and a million, whatever. So that has me worried because I will be using the back buttons a lot more on this controller than the face A and B button. I'll be using the X and Y, so I wish they had used the micro switches on the back buttons, because to be honest, that's where I would, most of the time I'll be using these back buttons, and I do use them a lot whilst gaming. You probably know how much we use the back buttons when we are playing, FPS games. So a bit of a missed opportunity there, but we'll see, what happens with the time and everything. But in terms of placement functionality, I think they work perfectly. Let's talk about the physical thumbstick caps first. So these are very much like the standard Xbox controller diameter. So the normal Xbox control freaks will fit here perfectly. You won't have any issues with that. The shape is a little bit different, the material different. So if you're not using control freaks, these do have a bit of a grip, which is very nice. They do feel like, just even without any grip, they actually feel nice. And when it comes to resistance, these do have more resistance than the standard Xbox controller, because these ones are using CNK thumbstick modules. I've never experienced CNK thumbstick modules before, and Xbox is using ELPs. So this module looks very much like the Favor Union one, the one in the Gambit, and the specs sound very similar as well. So they're saying it's 2 million rotation, the minimum, and 1 million button presses of the tack switch that's inside. The same as the Favor Union one in the Gambit and the Victrix Pro BFG. ELPs only rate their inside button press to only 500,000 minimum one. So that's something that this has an edge over the ELPs. But yeah, resistance a bit more, and the calibration is out of the factory. What they've done is it goes all the way to the edges for 100%. So it's not like you have dead space towards the corner. But I'll talk more about that in the performance section. But physical design of this thumbstick, yeah, if you have standard Xbox control freaks or you are used to the standard Xbox controller, you'll feel right at home, even better with the bit more grippy caps. All right, so let's talk about the performance of the thumbsticks. Like I mentioned, these are CNK thumbstick modules, and they have a software outer dead zone. So they don't have a true raw mode, but they are mimicking a raw mode. The game series providing us a raw mode and a circular one. So the calibration out of the box is quite nice. So we have they apply 1% dead zone in the middle and 1% outer dead zones, and the recentering is nice. Little bit of movement. You can get them to drift very minor, like a little bit out. My left stick is doing more, so you see I have a 4% register. I can stop it 4 or 5% at times, but it's not that bad. When it comes to their circularity, so these are mimicking a raw mode, and it's about 8% or something. And that's what they've basically decided to go with. And if you look at the shape it's making, we have basically a little bit extra inputs in the diagonals. And we have these 4 axial sort of like corners, like reaching 100% before. I'll show you what the shape precision tester makes. But what I like about these sticks is when we go towards the edges, we don't have that much of a dead space. So just when I'm about to reach the end, we get the full 100%. So it's a good way of like building muscle memory that you don't have that much of a dead space. A lot of the controllers, especially if they are in the the true raw mode, depending on what sort of type of a turning circle they've used the physical thumbstick gate, you might find there is some of a dead, some dead space after you reach the maximum values. It's a lot longer. You need a little bit of it because you don't want your stick to not reach the 100% within the thing. But here is very minimal, and it's basically that 1% they are applying. So the calibration is very nice out of the box. And let's quickly look at the precision tester as well. So that's basically the shape it's making, but we want to see what happens within the shape. So this controller I put in the hyper response category. So if you look at, if you watch my video of the response curves and stuff, this one doesn't make a circle. So it will make that, extra sort of shapes in the diagonals. Don't worry about bottom being a little bit, it's just how my precision ring is sitting. Is a very new precision ring and very tight one. So we are getting, a bit more extra input in the diagonal, and it shows. This is a really sort of hyper responsive curve that they've used. And if you're using linear curve on this one, it is, I'm telling you, it's so amazing to aim with. Quick flicking of targets, like moving and stuff, it's something else on this controller. The way they've designed this, so Fusion Pro 3 is also like Hyper One, but its error rate is a lot higher, so it's a bit more twitchy than this. This is like a perfect balance of having really hyper sort of movement and stuff, and the response is quite amazing. How it's reaching all towards the end to get the 100%, and the response curve they've used and the shape they're using is quite amazing. Like, I absolutely really loved aiming with this controller. It's definitely like after the between the Gambit and these would be, so Gambit for me is like the smoother one that I love, and then this one. Now these sticks do feel like the Favor Union ones, but CNK, I can't find any link between CNK and Favor Union. CNK is owned by like a French company, and they have some stuff in China, but I think it's their own module, even though they look and the spec sounds very similar. But very, very good feeling sticks. My biggest issue with the things they've done here, we don't have any recalibration option. So as it will lose stuff, in longevity, it will go out of calibration. We can't recalibrate them, which is a strange thing for me. Most of the third-party controllers have a recalibration option, and I think they should have included that in here, but we don't have that. So that's my biggest concern, that what happens once we start losing some calibration, or what happens with the controller. But performance-wise, yeah, out of the box, they work really well. I did encounter an issue, which I have to disclose. I got a lot of jitter in my right stick for whatever reason. And I have read that comment on Amazon reviews a lot, actually. And it wasn't a little jitter, it was a lot. It was like moving too much and stuff. So when I opened my controller to see what sticks they were using, I did open the potentiometer port and I resetted the potentiometer. So I literally took it out, put it back in, and then it went away. I can't tell you guys if that's going to happen to you or whatever, but that's what I did, and my right stick was absolutely fine after that. And it was something that I noticed that happened a lot. Now, it could be because I use precision rings, maybe that was the cause or whatever, but yeah, that's something that I do have to mention. But it's gone now. My sticks work absolutely perfectly now. Conclusion time, guys. Would I recommend this controller to you? So this controller is priced and aimed at the retail market, $109.99, right? And the whole point of this controller is being able to basically replace the modules. The other parts are nice as well, but these modules are priced at £16.99 British pounds, and they're not available in any of the online retailers. Like, single modules are not available anywhere that I can purchase. I have to go to Thrustmaster's own website, and they're priced at £16.99 plus £10 delivery. So £27 for me to buy one module, or I can buy a pack for Thrustmaster Eswap X with 2 modules and triggers that are not going to work on my controller, and the side sort of packs. That's for £50, and I can get free delivery. So I get 2 modules, which are not these S2, are S5. And according to the language on their website, I have a feeling those S5 modules are probably using elf sticks and not the CNK ones. I can't confirm that, because I was actually thinking about buying it, but then I was like, no, I don't want to spend that much money. So there is that. Now, the other issues I've had with the controller, the software not working properly, audio's not coming out properly, and the twitchiness that I've experienced and so many comments on Amazon has me really worried about this controller. For me, yes, I love using it, and I do have a really good time playing with this controller, but I did have to open the stick, I did have to open the potentiometer port and reset that for the jitter to go, and then no calibration option. So you can't calibrate the sticks once they start going off. I don't even know what you're supposed to do, because there is no way I can, no software options for the calibration. I can't read anywhere in the manual that, how you're supposed to is there a recalibration mode? Can we recalibrate them? Because it's a software out of dead zone. What's happening? Is it going to keep losing resolution, going to have that jitter? Or what goes on? Something, the Victrix Gambit, you can recalibrate. Power Fusion Pro 3, you can recalibrate. GameSet G7, G7 SE, you can recalibrate. So although I love using this controller and I've had some really amazing games with it, I personally can't recommend it to you with the issues that I've had with it. So if you are thinking about this controller, definitely check other reviews out, read the reviews on Amazon and other places. And my request to you would be, If you've had a good experience with this controller, please can you share in the comments down below, and so people can see that, because the performance wise, when this works, it is amazing. Really good performing controller. But if you can please share your experience, that would be amazing, good or bad. So don't think about me, just think about helping another gamer out. That would be absolutely amazing. So that's it from me, guys. Like I said, love it and I hate it. I do hope you find this useful. It was a useful, information in here. And if you have any questions, do leave me a comment. Thank you so much for everyone who subscribed. Your support means a lot, honestly. Thanks a lot. And thanks a lot for watching this video. Hopefully I'll catch you in one of my other ones. Bye for now.